Hail to the king, or at least that's what Donald Trump would like to believe he is going to be. Welcome to the Voice of Liberty. My name is Henry Conley. Tonight we're going to talk about Trump, the post office, fascism, voting, elections. Man, we're going to run the entire gambit of things here. And the reason we're going to do this is because it's entirely necessary. What we are witnessing in the United States is the President of the United States attempting to groom people to not trust the post office, an institution which has existed since the formation of this country. It is, in fact, one of the only institutions which is explicitly mentioned within the Constitution that it must exist. It is a government entity which exists because it is mandated to exist. Now, Donald Trump, of course, wants to lead people into not trusting it. Donald Trump wants to lead people into believing that mail-in voting, in whatever shape or form and whatever he wants to call it today, is fraudulent. And there's a reason. And we're going to cover that reason before we get into some of the deeper stuff real quick here. And that reason is pretty blunt. Donald Trump recognizes that he will, and I'm going to be 100% clear about this, he will lose the November election. There's no question about this. Biden has a clear lead over him. This is not an endorsement of Biden. Biden is as despicable as Trump is. Kamala Harris is as despicable as Pence is. And if I can even say this, possibly more despicable. But Trump recognizes this. His campaign recognizes this. Everyone around him recognizes this, that he will lose. So what he's setting up is the chance to claim that the election was fraudulent and that mail-in voting caused the election to be fraudulent, and therefore he's not going to accept the results of the election. He's not going to leave office. He's going to stay. He's going to fight. And this leads us into the main part of this conversation. The 14th characteristic, the last characteristic in the 14 characteristics of a fascist, is fraudulent elections. Now, I have to give a shout out to Bo, the fifth column, for even alerting me to the existence of this list. It is a pretty striking list, and Donald Trump has managed to check off every single one of them. He's now on number 14. He's getting ready to check off number 14 on the list of things that you can or characteristics you can expect within a fascist. And this brings me to the big thing to talk about. Fascists do not leave office voluntarily. Fascists don't care about elections. Fascists will not leave office when they are told to. That is just plain truth. If you are going to go into the November election thinking that you are about to vote Donald Trump out of office, I have news for you. You are not going to. It's not going to happen. And that is because Donald Trump is literally following every fascist ahead of him. The ones that have set those characteristics to be true. Donald Trump leaving office because he loses the November election, not going to happen. See, fascists, they fight to maintain power. They fight to keep power. They do not want to lose it. They seek to make their rule absolute. An example of this would be Donald Trump continually retweeting the GIF of Trump 2024, 2028, 2032, so on and so forth. See, by tweeting that GIF, he is getting his base, his support base, to think of him as a long-term ruler of the United States. Hail to the king. By constantly retweeting that, he is now ingraining his base to think of having Trump in office till he dies. In fact, there's been many tests of this exact theory, this idea. You look on YouTube, there are plenty of interviews where people walk up to a Trump supporter and ask them if they would like Trump to rule until death. And they almost always turn around and say yes. And then when it's pointed out that that's authoritarian, that that's fascist, they don't care. See, another part of becoming a fascist ruler and setting up a fascist authoritarian dictatorship is getting a base behind you. I've said this before on the podcast, and I'll say it again. The Nazis didn't just walk up one day and say, Adolf Hitler's your ruler, and guess what? This is the Third Reich. They needed support behind them. They needed people who believed in the Third Reich, in Adolf Hitler, and in the cause of the Nazis. That's how they were able to prop themselves up. That's how they were able to accomplish what they sought to accomplish. Trump has been very carefully setting up his base and ingraining his base to support and defend the things that he does. He tested it with detaining people at the border. He tested it by separating families. He tested it by unleashing the feds on the people coming across those borders. He continued to test it by unleashing the feds on peaceful protesters. He's ingraining his base to support and defend the things that he does under the guise of patriotism, freedom, and liberty. He is training his base to believe that the things he's doing are there to create a stronger, greater America, to make America great again and to keep America great. See, the way that fascists are able to change the laws and the things that limit their hold on power, what they do is they get the base to fear having an election or fear the results of election via a calamity or other perceived threat. This is what going against the post office, mail-in ballots, this is what this is. See, the perceived threat to his base is a fraudulent election. The perceived threat is that there will be massive amounts of voter fraud. What they don't see is that Donald Trump is setting in motion a way to interfere with a U.S. election. It's not the first time he's done it. No matter what anybody wants to say or believe, he did this in 2016. He attempted to continue to do it by pegging Ukraine, by attempting to get other countries involved. The House responded with articles of impeachment. I don't think the House will respond with articles of impeachment over this one, just because they see how bad it went the first time. It was unsuccessful. There was clear and present evidence that supported him attempting to interfere in a U.S. election, an impeachable offense, and the Senate didn't care. So, what do we do in the face of literal fascism? What do we do in the face of a mounting chance that he is not going to accept the results of the election? Well, we the people have to demand that those in charge carry out their duties. When Donald Trump loses the election and January 20th rolls around and the inauguration occurs, we must make sure that those who are in charge, those whose duty it is to ensure that he is out and the change of power occurs, that it actually does. Those of us on the left, we must not give up hope, though, because our fight goes way beyond Donald Trump. Our fight continues on to the next attempted would-be king. Our fight doesn't end here. But see, Donald Trump wants this to be his last living accomplishment, and we must not allow it to happen. We must stand and be voices of liberty. We must awaken the voice of liberty, and we must ensure that this election is truly free, and it is truly an American election.